The biggest game releases of December 2024. Wait, yeah.
Holy crap, it is
Holy
almost
crap.
2025.
Let
Not
it-
sure how that happened, but here we are. Before you start looking ahead to next year, though, 2024 still has a few more video games left at the bottom of its stocking. So many, in fact, we felt it was worth making a whole video about them. Here are December 2024's biggest game releases.
There it goes.
Before we get started, just your usual monthly reminder that while we do our very best to make these videos as accurate and comprehensive as possible, release dates
This video
do
looks-
change and sometimes games appear out of nowhere.
Like,
Surprise, motherfucker.
The last big gaming event of the year is the Game Awards, which takes place on the 12th, and it's very possible we get some surprise announcements coming out of that. But also, sometimes we just screw up at our end. If that happens, please don't be mad at us. It's Christmas, and Christmas means not being held accountable for your actions, or something. Anyway, let's talk about video games. On December 3rd, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete is taking Nintendo's free-to-play mobile
Animal
entry
Crossing
in the hit
Pocket
franchise
Camp.
and making it
Damn, I've
pay
never
to
been
play,
playing Animal
or rather,
Crossing.
pay once and then play all you want.
Honestly.
No microtransactions offline if you so choose. So basically, it's a regular video game now.
No
If you sunk a bunch
abilities.
of time into the game already, don't worry.
No
you can
third
transfer your
crafting,
progress over. All your animal friends will stay friends with you, at least until you piss them off by hitting them with a butterfly net and littering at their campsite.
Nah,
Still
honestly,
on the
I'll
third
play
on Switch
Animal
and
Crossing. I
PC
should get it
is
for the
Anton
Switch.
Blast, in which case demolitions expert Dynamite Anton must retrieve his collection of spirits from Satan,
Yeah.
who stole them because he was jealous of Anton's beautiful bright red skin. It sounds from Blast and the butterfly net and littering at their Dynamite Anton must retrieve his collection of spirits
Anton
from Satan,
Blast.
who stole them because he was jealous of Anton's beautiful bright red skin. It sounds bonkers, but it looks like Wario Land. Lots of destruction, which you'd expect from a demolitions expert named Dynamite. Still in the third is Go Home Annie, which sounds
Go
like
Home
somebody
Annie.
forgetting the lyrics
Go
to
home,
Smooth
bye.
Criminal or misquoting Watto the Toydarian junk dealer. But he forgot from a demolitions expert named Dynamite. Still in the third is Go Home Annie, which sounds like
PC?
somebody forgetting the lyrics to Smooth
happened
Criminal
to
or
this Doge?
misquoting Watto the Toydarian junk dealer.
Wait, did he
But
call
it
us
is, in
spiking?
fact,
From fucking.
Criminal or misquoting Watto the Toydarian junk dealer. But it is in fact a nice healthy dose of psychological horror. Look for that on PC. Meanwhile, any PS5 owners who missed out on the co-op first-person grimdark horde shooting action when Warhammer 40k Darktide
Warhammer
came to PC
40K
and Xbox
Darktide.
Series a while back can finally
even played
join
one.
in on the
Oh
fun.
my.
And while the jury's out on how well
Omni.
it runs on PS5, from the sound of things, the core
Damn,
experience
you're exhibiting
has
Omni.
improved
That
a
means
whole lot
we're gonna
since it
pop
first
off today.
launched. On
Right.
December 5th, the global open beta kicks off for Delta Force. This was formerly titled Delta Force Hawk Ops, but it thankfully changed its name before everyone started calling
Delta
it
Force
Hawk Quad.
PC.
This one looks like the closest thing to a new Battlefield we'll be getting for the foreseeable future, featuring large-scale multiplayer matches with extremely realistic military hardware and very destructible environments. I really hope this one delivers. That'll be hitting PC first and eventually making its way to PS5 and Xbox Series later on. If you want something with lots of explosions but considerably less realism, there's also
Entropy Survivors.
on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC.
Oh,
this
it's
is a
a
roguelike
little,
shmup where you're a
AAA.
frog with guns who rides around on a big robot. It works for me.
Oh, I like these kind of games.
Where you're a frog with guns who rides around on
You just
a
like
big
kill
robot.
enemies and
Works
enhance your abilities.
for me.
I'd like to go on record as being opposed to the use of violence.
What was that? What was that game? What's that game called? Oh. What the fuck? I don't even know the fucking name to this shit. Don't help.
For purposes of conflict resolution. However,
If you don't want to shoot anything and rather run around collecting pretty dresses and stuff, Infinity Nikki will turn you loose in a whimsical
Infinity Nikki.
wonderland filled with more satin petticoats than you can shake
Infinity.
a parasol at, each more resplendent than the last. That's on PS5 and PC.
Oh.
If you want a game about people with pretty anime hair and a whimsical wonderland where
Fantasian.
you'd rather just do some good
Fantasian.
old-fashioned turn-based battling,
Neo
well, keep an eye
Dimension.
out for Fantasian Neo Dimension.
Fantasian.
This is an enhanced version of the
Neo
formerly
Dimension.
Apple Arcade exclusive JRPG developed by Final Fantasy
that's a
creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, who said he was
complicated get a name.
inspired to create a new emotional role-playing narrative after revisiting FF6.
To be
Though it's
honest.
also entirely possible that Tim Cook drove up outside his house in a dump truck full of money and leaned on the horn while yelling, "Make us a new Final Fantasy for the iPhone!" I can't prove that actually happened, but you also can't prove that it didn't happen, so let's just agree to disagree. In any case, Fantasian was well received when it came to iOS, and I'm glad it's finally getting a new lease on life for platforms that actually have buttons. Still that day, Behemoth comes to all the latest
Kid's
VR
not even
headsets,
camo
which is that
grinding.
Shadow of the Colossus like from the folks behind the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners.
Dude,
That's
you like
pretty
this game?
wild, but
Skydance
Stranger Things
Behemoth?
have
It looks
happened
cool,
in
right?
VR, including Stranger Things VR, which already came out on MetaQuest, but is
Let's
now
run that back
coming
real
to
quick.
Shadow of the Colossus like from the folks behind the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. That's pretty wild, but Stranger Things have
Damn, look at
happened
that.
in VR,
Oh
including
shit, that was sick.
Walking
Little
Dead
underhand
Saints and
block.
Sinners,
Yo, run that back.
VR headsets, which is that Shadow of the Colossus like from the folks behind the Walking Dead Saints
What?
and Sinners. That's pretty wild, but Stranger Things have
Oh, there it
happened
is.
in VR,
Oh.
including Stranger Things VR, which already came out on MetaQuest but is now coming to PC and PSVR.
Wait,
2
that's
as well.
VR. Yo,
Behind
I
the
should
wall-
get this. Yo. Can you can't use your feet.
Walking Dead
Next.
Saints and Sinners. That's pretty wild, but Stranger Things have happened in VR, including Stranger Things VR, which already came out
VR,
on
that's
MetaQuest
right.
but
Yeah,
is
it's
now
VR.
coming to PC and PSVR 2 as well. Oddly enough, that one has you playing as Vecna, and you'll be tormenting a
Shit,
bunch
VR.
of preteens from the upside down. That's
like
kinda
that
weird,
shit,
but
though.
hey, props to the devs for trying something new. Speaking of trying something new, Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is a roguelite puzzle
Chop's
game where
Rocket
you
Shop.
fix spaceships for cartoon animals,
cool.
which is intriguing enough of a
the
premise, and
name.
that is coming to Switch, Xbox Series, PS5, and PC on the 5th as well. By December 6th, a lot of people's
Marvel
wallets
Rivals.
are probably hurting even
Oh, I
more
should
than they
do this.
already were, but good news, there's a
Let's try
big,
it.
shiny, free-to-play game dropping that day. Marvel Rivals,
December
a
6th.
team-based hero shooter featuring a roster of 27 heavily overhauled versions of iconic superheroes and supervillains, plus Jeff the Land Shark. That same day, Path of Exile 2's early access period kicks off.
Oh, Path of
The
Exile-
original
oh,
is free to
same
play,
day?
and the
Oh,
sequel
shit.
May eventually be early access will cost you
PoE
30
2,
bucks,
huh?
which is
I'd
more
buy
than
it, but
free, but less than
I'll
most
just wait.
other games. Marvel Rivals
Let the
and Path of
nerds
Exile
do it.
2
Oh,
are
well, they
both
not.
on PC as well as
They're
Xbox
not
Series
they're not
and
gonna get the
PS5.
bugs I'm getting. I don't know.
If you want some isometric stuff involving ninjas and samurai instead of wizards and goblins, there's also Shadow Tactics, Blades of the Shogun, Aiko's
I
Choice,
should
which was
get on
released
that.
back in 2021.
They need the
Some
bug
excellent reviews, and now
report
it's coming
in
to
game.
PS5 and
Every
Xbox
game needs
Series.
that, bro.
Dogman Mission
Sorry.
Impossible.
That just
sounds
pissed
like
me
it could be
off.
a kooky
Every
indie
fucking
that
game
actually
needs
takes the
that.
massively lucrative children's graphic novel series from the creator of Captain Underpants, which is about to become a major motion picture. But first, it's on all the current gen game consoles and PC. If you want a kooky indie game based on a massively lucrative film franchise that's about a guy who's named after a dog, there's also Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on the 9th. If we're being completely honest, I've had a really hard time finding a game that clicked for me this year, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up about this one too much, but the more I hear, the more optimistic I am. Apologies if you've heard all this ad nauseum since it was announced, but for starters, it's from Machine Games, a studio that has a pretty solid
Wait,
track
what was the last
record
game? I
for
forgot.
games.
It was
Completely
in my
honest,
bag.
I've had a really hard time
I was in my
major
go
motion
yard.
picture, but first, it's excellent reviews, and now it's hitting
Shadow
PS5 and
Tactics, Blade of the
Xbox Series.
Shogun.
Dogman Mission Impossible sounds like it could be a kooky indie game, but it's actually based on the massively lucrative children's graphic novel series from the creator of Captain
Dogman
Underpants,
Mission
which is about to become a major motion
Impossible.
picture. But first, it's on all the current gen game consoles and PC. If you want a kooky indie game based on a massively lucrative film franchise that's about a guy who's named after a dog, there's also Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on the
Indiana
9th.
Jones and the
If we're
Great
being completely
Circle. Oh,
honest, I've had a
shit.
really hard time finding a game that clicked for me this year, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up about this one too much, but the more I hear, the more optimistic I am. Apologies if you've heard all this ad nauseum since it was announced, but for starters, it's from Machine Games, a studio that has a pretty solid track record for games where you f**k up Nazis, having been the developers behind the most recent Wolfensteins. Meanwhile, the studio was founded by ex-Starbreeze devs who worked on some notable first-person games that just so happen to be based on established licensed properties, namely Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, and The Darkness. An Indiana Jones game that's just Wolfenstein and
Great
Fedora would
Circle.
bury the whole archaeology element, so it's reassuring to hear The Great Circle is as much an adventure game as it is an action game with plenty of puzzles and exploration. What really has me licking my proverbial chops, though, is when some of my colleagues came away from the Gamescom demo comparing it to Hitman. Hitman World of Assassination stealthily infiltrated my all-time favorite games when Hitman 3 finally hooked me on that series back in 2021, and that was partially because of how much freedom it gave me to approach missions in creative ways, but also for its wonderfully dark sense of humor. The Great Circle will also see Indy putting on disguises to sneak into places he's not supposed to be, and apparently there's a pretty wide amount of freedom for how you can
Indiana
approach missions.
Jones.
And
I've
also,
always liked
there's
Indiana
lots of
Jones. It's cool.
weaponized Rube Goldberg
It's like,
slapstick that can be used to dispense with the bad guys in unexpected ways.
The adventure.
Watch your step, pal.
Sick.
The The Hitman developers are currently working on a James Bond game, but that's a ways off, and considering how high of a bar the World of Assassination trilogy set for games about ruthless agents whose codename ends in 7, I'm trying not to get my hopes up about that one. However, an indie game being reminiscent of a Hitman game that resembles a James Bond game in everything but name is especially fitting when you consider that Indiana Jones is effectively a byproduct of Ian Fleming's iconic spy in the first place. In his early years, Steven Spielberg had an active interest in making a 007 film, but was rejected multiple times by Bond's hilariously named producer Albert Broccoli. As legend has it, seriously, Spielberg was griping about this to his pal George Lucas as the two of them were building a sandcastle while vacationing in Hawaii, and Lucas replied, "Hey, have I told you about my idea for a movie about an archaeologist who punches Nazis and f***s? That's sort of like James Bond, right?" Okay, so I'm paraphrasing that last part, but the rest is apparently true. Anyway, The Great Circle rolls onto Xbox Series and PC, and it'll be hitting PS5 early next year, and I hope it's an Indiana Jones game that plays like a Hitman game that plays like a James Bond game, because ultimately, that's The Great Circle.
Remember a time when anything felt possible? What if it was?
You can see grand adventures even
Skeleton
in a walking
Crew.
galaxy like this.
Skeleton Crew, streaming December 2nd. And now save big on the Disney Plus Hulu bundle with a Black Friday offer.
Circle right there. Anyway, Monument Valley sounds like somewhere Indiana
Monument
Jones would get lost,
Valley.
and the third
This
installment
looks
of that
cool.
beloved puzzle game will be coming to Netflix games on the 10th. If you're feeling nostalgic for some good
Legacy
old-fashioned
game.
turn-of-the-century
So good.
gaming, you can raise the old some hell and party like it's 1999 and also 2001 when Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 get remastered for basically everything. If you'd like to go back a little further to the more colorful halcyon days of the 16-bit era, there's also Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, which is giving Angel Grove's finest the Shredder's Revenge treatment with an old-school side-scrolling co-op beat-em-up. The added wrinkle here is that there are some
Mighty
rad
Morphin
Mode 7
Power
Superscalar style levels. If you're
Rangers.
curious about this one, I put together a video preview a few weeks back. I liked what I saw. Anyway, those games are on all the current consoles plus PC.
Good times.
Finally, on
When
December
I can just
10th,
get up
Prime
and turn on the
Video's
fucking
secret-level animated
TV.
anthology series premieres, which is kind of like Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots, except it's based
Secret
on
level.
existing video game IP, which makes sense because a lot of Love, Death, and Robots was basically CGI trailers for non-existent video games made by Blur Studios, a production house that got famous for making some of the best CGI game trailers of E3's past, and now they have gone full circle, making CGI shorts about video games. The holidays are supposed to be all about the spirit of
the
giving,
Samurai.
but what
Oh,
if they
shit,
were
this
about the
looks cool,
spirit
actually.
of the Samurai? That is a 2D stop-motion action adventure that looks a little bit like Sekiro running on the Kubo and the Two Strings engine. That's on PC on the
Oh.
12th. Also on PC a
that's
day
cool.
later is
Wait, what the
Bronana. That is a 2D stop-motion action adventure that looks a little bit like Sekiro running on the Kubo and the Two Strings engine. That's on PC on the 12th. Also on PC a day later is Bronana, a very appealing roguelite survival game that looks like a bunch of fun. If you're good on potassium but want something with a little more protein, there's also Meat 2 Absolute Zero, which is a nice, juicy,
2
red-blooded
Absolute Zero.
boomer shooter, also on
Absolute
PC,
Zero.
also on the 13th. If you're more into leafy greens and non-violence, Botany Manor.
Botany
may be more your
Manor.
speed.
Oh,
that hit
shit.
PC, Switch, and Xbox earlier this year,
Oh,
and on the
shit.
17th, it is coming to PS4 and PS5.
Oh,
this one
shit.
totally caught me off guard, and I almost slept on it completely, thinking it was one of those cozy farming games where you have to grow a bunch of
I
weeds and
might-
stuff. It's actually a really lovely little first-person puzzle game with
I got
some
a green
interesting environmental
thumb.
storytelling. Best way I can describe
I'm a
it is
farmer.
it's like a cross between Resident Evil and The Secret Garden. It's like Resident Evil in that you're solving some convoluted puzzles to unlock new areas in a mansion where people were doing some science experiments, but it's not remotely scary and nothing tries to kill you. You're just making flowers grow and exploring an old house. It's very nice. If that sounds like boring old lady bullshit, prefer a video game where you and
Squid
31
Game
other people
Unleashed.
try to avoid getting murdered, there's also Squid Game Unleashed, the multiplayer party royale based on the
oh.
massively popular Netflix series, which is getting a second season
Available
on
on
December 26th.
Netflix.
Keep an eye out for the game on supported Netflix devices and the show on anything that has Netflix, which is somehow everything but Switch, I think. On the 19th, you can let
Nope.
your favorite VR headset give your face
Well,
a
I
hug
guess-
in Alien Rogue Incursion. This is the first official VR
bro.
game set in that dark corner of space where no one can hear you scream, though I guess really that's all
Alien
of space.
Rogue
People will
Incursion.
almost definitely hear you scream playing this game in VR. On the bright side, while it's definitely got some similar vibes, it is not just a VR redo of Alien Isolation. For starters, you got a pulse rifle, which is more useful than the sharp sticks, harsh language, and household items that Amanda Ripley was stuck with. Plus, it'll be less isolated because you've got an artificial person keeping you company while you fend off some xenomorphs.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
It's not a game release, but it's obviously game
the
adjacent. On
Hedgehog.
December 20th, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 hits theaters, which sees yet another high-profile actor who first appeared in Cyberpunk 2077, now voicing a pointy-haired cartoon animal, with Keanu Reeves voicing Shadow alongside Idris Elba as Knuckles. Not sure how that worked out, but it works. If you like the idea of having white Knuckles at what's lurking in the dark shadows, on the
On Air.
27th, On Air hits PC. This is a first-person indie survival horror puzzle adventure that has you stuck in a creepy hotel during a hurricane in 1969, and there's some other weird stuff staying there as well. As always, a few games really like to leave us hanging about their holiday plans, and a few big game releases are slated for a late 2024 release, but haven't said exactly when. Ark 2 was supposed to enter early
Ark
access
2?
last
Really?
year, but it was instead pushed to late 2024, which it
Oh, is that Vin Diesel?
currently is, and we still don't have a release date. So my guess is this either gets pushed to 2025 or it gets a big, huge surprise available now announcement during the Game Awards.
It came! It finally came!
Oh shit.
The Wolf Among Us 2 is also expected at some point in 2024, though considering it was announced way back in 2019, I can't help but feel a little bit boy who cried wolf on the matter at this point. And with that, 2024's biggest game releases are behind us. I will be back in the new year with a look ahead at what's to come in January, and in the meantime, keep an eye out for a look ahead at 2025's big game releases that we currently know about. There are quite a few of them. As always, if you want a better way of keeping track of all games, new, old, upcoming, canceled, and even forgotten, IGN Playlist is a great way to do so. It's basically like Letterboxd or Goodreads, but for video games. It's totally free. You can sign up at playlist.ign.com or scan the QR code that is displayed somewhere on this very screen. Oh, and hey, while I've got you, one more thing. I have a ton of fun making these videos every month, and it wouldn't be possible without Amanda Medina producing, Chris Del Padre editing, and Logan Plant keeping tabs on every game that has ever come out and ever will. So big, huge thank you to all of them, and an even bigger thank you to all of you who took the time to watch these videos whenever we put them up, especially those of you who said something nice in the comments. That keeps us going when we're having bad days, and we love you for it. From all of us here at IGN, we hope that your December doesn't totally suck ass and that you have a safe and happy holiday season, whatever particular flavor of holiday you choose to observe. Personally, I will be observing the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition and then falling asleep on the couch because I've had too much wine. I'll see you in the next video that I'm in. Cowabunga, everybody. Happy holidays.
Look,
Why is everyone spiraling over?
I'm not spiraling.